A few months ago, we drove the Prius all-wheel drive, and I talked about how it was a handling revelation due to its secret weapon, the rear electric motor. This is the 2026 Prius plug-in, and it makes more power than the all-wheel drive model, 220 horsepower to be exact, and it is objectively quicker. But this may have lost the one thing that made the Prius all-wheel drive fun to drive, and today we find out whether these extra horses are worth the handling penalty. Toyota's math says that this power unit makes 220 horsepower combined compared to 196 horsepower of the all-wheel drive model, which sounds like progress. Except he deleted the rear motor that makes the all-wheel drive model feel planted. With this plug-in, all 220 horses are fighting for traction through those 2 front contact patches instead of 4. And remember, physics doesn't care about your horsepower figures. Yes, 220 horsepower, but unlike the all-wheel drive model, this plug-in is exclusively front-wheel drive. In the all-wheel drive Prius, that rear electric motor just helps the car feel so much more composed in the corners. Here, the front tires are doing everything, steering, braking, and managing that extra horsepower. Here on this lightly snowy and icy and certainly cold road surface, you mash the throttle and let's see what happens. The steering wheel just tugs in my hands. It's classic torque steer from those front tires trying to put down all 220 horsepower to the ground while I'm still aiming this Prius. And when you do that, the traction control intervenes constantly as if there's a nanny on board with you. In that all-wheel drive model, the rear motor is electric and the torque transfer is instantaneous and gives you a lot of confidence whether you're leaving from a stop or exiting a corner. Just helps the Prius feel much more planted. Here, under maximum acceleration, those front tires just put an emergency call into the traction control and tell it to sort out the drama. When we drove the all-wheel drive model, I was impressed at how I could trail brake it into a corner, and then when I'm coming back onto the throttle, I could pick up the throttle and the car just felt planted on corner exit. It responded just like I wanted it to, just like a proper driver's car, and I think that's the magic of the all-wheel drive model. This car, trail brake into a corner, ease off the brake, start picking up the throttle as you would in the all-wheel drive car, but this one just wants to push. It's classic old school understeer that's exacerbated by the fact that this is a front-wheel drive car with lots of weight on the nose. And when you're having fun in the corners, on corner exit, you have to wait an extra moment or two before applying throttle, which kind of negates the point about having an extra 24 horsepower. This being a hybrid, it does have regenerative braking, which means the engineers had to work on blending that regenerative braking with actual friction brakes, and the blending's okay for the most part, but in those situations where you're enjoying yourself in the corners, the control with this brake pedal, it's not as precise as I'd like, and I think it has to do with the light amount of effort required to actually brake this Prius. When I get on the brake pedal like this, I don't have to apply much effort to slow it down. That's great for emergency situations, that's for sure, but controlling the attitude in this Prius on corner entry, well, I'd like a little bit more pedal effort there. The initial bite of the brakes is very good, lots of braking power, and I think because this is the plug-in, carries a little extra mass, and there may be some extra weight on the nose, I think this plug-in asks those front tires to work a little bit more than they would in the all-wheel drive model. We do have that 13.6 kilowatt hour battery on board to deliver this plug-in's EV range, but what that means is some additional weight. This Nightshade Edition comes with these extremely good-looking 19s, and they look appropriate on the shape of this latest generation Prius design, that's for sure. However, I think this would be better served by a lighter wheel and tire package because every once in a while the suspension can feel overwhelmed. When we drove the all-wheel drive model, I praised the damping because it was excellent. The dampers do a great job all around. Over smaller imperfections, the ride was compliant, and over those larger bumps, well, body and wheel motion was extremely well controlled. This plug-in weighs 3,516 pounds, which is 176 pounds more than the all-wheel drive model. And based on my impressions, I don't think the suspension calibrations have changed here at all. Over those smaller road imperfections like broken pavement that I drive on a lot in this part of the world, there's a little bit more crash through, and over bigger bumps, there's just a touch more float here as those dampers have to work a little bit harder to control body motion. A word about these tires, they're 195s, which means you have two 195 millimeter wide contact patches at the front trying to put down all 220 horsepower. For context, the Honda Civic Si makes 200 horsepower and has 235 wide tires. This has more power and less tires, so the results are predictable. When you're having fun in the corners and want to exit aggressively, one of two things happen. Either the traction control intervenes or you push wide. And keep in mind, understeer is a choice, my friends, and you have to be patient picking up the throttle. Ergonomically, this is the same Prius interior, so we have to talk about this instrument cluster again. When I have this steering wheel adjusted properly, the speedometer and most of this display is blocked. To see that instrument cluster, I have to put the steering wheel in my lap where it just feels totally unnatural, and I hope that this is an ergonomic thing that Toyota can fix when they refresh or revise this Prius. Thankfully, just a bit of bolstering in these seats to support you in the corners. At this trim level, the driver's seat's 8-way power adjustable, which is a nice thing to have, as are the heated seats at this time of year, and I've definitely been using the heated seats. Forward visibility is excellent, it's absolutely top-notch. Rearward visibility is compromised by the shape of the roofline and the shape of that rear glass, so I would say rearward visibility is average at best, and in this Nightshade trim, you don't get the digital rear view mirror. And if you do want that digital rear view camera, you gotta go up a trim level to the XSE Premium. Now, if you stop driving like a dumb racing driver for a second, the math of this Prius plug-in starts to make sense because it has an EV range of up to 40 miles or about 64 kilometers for my Canadian friends. And if you have a short commute and plug this in every night, you'll probably visit a gas station maybe twice a year. On a level 2 charger, you can actually charge this fully in about 4 hours, and at home on a 120 volt outlet takes about 11 hours. And if your daily round trip commute is under 40 miles, you'll probably never need to go to a level 2 charger. One thing to keep in mind is that when this plug-in's battery is depleted, this then drives like a regular Prius hybrid, which is not a bad thing. Normal drivers still should be able to achieve 48 miles per gallon combined, or about 4.9 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends. And for context, I'm getting 38 miles per gallon or 6.1 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends. As far as I'm concerned, those mileage numbers are excellent, even in 2026. I mean, for me to achieve 38 miles per gallon is just incredible. And again, my mileage numbers aren't realistic. This Prius plug-in is undeniably the better appliance. It's quicker in a straight line, and if you can plug it in, offers so much more efficiency than a regular Prius hybrid. But if you want the Prius that actually handles, you want the Prius all-wheel drive that we drove a few months ago. If you want to understand how that Prius all-wheel drive handles so well, how distributing 196 horsepower across 4 wheels instead of 220 across 2 creates a much more engaging Prius, well, you can watch that review right here. That's the 2026 Toyota Prius Plug-in Nightshade Edition. Subscribe if you enjoyed this. Don't if you don't. Comment with anything I got wrong. And if you want to support the channel, hit up the merch store. See you on the next one.